you made it to the end of this day. Whatever happened, whatever the hours held, joy or weariness, noise or silence, none of it has to follow you into sleep. If you find solace in the size of the universe, in the vast quiet of things, then the events of one day have a lightness to them, drifting like dust in a sunbeam. And if you trust in a plan, in a care that runs deeper than what you can see, know this: you have been looked after before. You will be looked after still. Tonight, you don't have to figure anything out. Tonight, you only have to rest. And so, gently, we begin tonight. We're going to travel through the quiet formation of a crystal. Not a sudden, dramatic event, but a slow and patient gathering, the kind that happens in stillness. Over time, you can barely measure. We're going to drift through the calm spaces where crystals are born, in a drop of water, in the hush of a deep cavern, in the cooling heart of the earth. There is no rush, nothing demanding your attention, just the peaceful observation of order emerging from quiet, molecule by molecule, layer by layer. Imagine you're beginning a journey, one where time moves differently. Here, an hour and an eon feel the same, wrapped in the same unhurried breath. You find yourself floating now, not in air, but in something warmer, thicker, a liquid that holds you gently, like a soft and weightless embrace. This is the solution, the cradle where a crystal will come to be. It's a sea of calm, clear and still, and you are suspended in it. Perfectly at ease. There's no need to swim or move. The medium itself supports you, and you can simply drift. Around you, the solution is full, brimming with invisible building blocks, tiny charged pieces of matter. Ions, they're sometimes called, though you don't need to remember names. They drift as well, carried by the same slow currents that hold you. They don't collide with urgency. They meander. They wander. They spin gently in place. The whole space is one of quiet potential, a patient waiting that has no expectation, no deadline. Time moves differently here. The temperature is warm but not hot. A gentle evenness that never changes. A steady, soothing presence. It's the kind of warmth you might feel in the last moments before sleep, when your body has relaxed fully and the world outside seems far away. Light, if there is light, is soft and diffuse, coming from everywhere and nowhere. A muted glow that doesn't cast shadows, but simply fills the space with a pale, bluish stillness. There's no surface to look up to, no bottom to sink to. You're simply here, in this saturated quiet, this full and patient pause. And in this pause, something is about to begin, so slowly that you wouldn't notice it if you weren't already drifting in the rhythm of the deep slow. Now, slowly, very slowly, you begin to notice a small change. It's not a jolt or a flash, nothing that demands attention. It's more like a subtle thickening in the texture of the solution, a barely perceptible gathering. Imagine the tiniest point in the vast liquid around you, a point no bigger than a speck of dust, a point that was empty just a moment before. Now, it seems to hold a different quality. A few of the drifting ions, those quiet building blocks, have come to rest near one another. They didn't race to get there. They simply drifted into a shared space, drawn by a gentle, invisible pull that's always been there. A pull as soft as a whisper. You float closer without effort, and you find yourself observing the first tentative gathering. It's a cluster, so small you couldn't see it with your waking eyes. But here, in this dreamlike journey, You can sense it. A handful of particles, perhaps just 6 or 7, have arranged themselves into a tiny, neat pattern. They hold together for a moment, a fragile little group, and then, as gently as they came together, they drift apart again. This happens again, and then again. A quiet testing, a soft rehearsal of order. Particles meet, they try a configuration, they release back into the wandering. There's no frustration in it, no struggle. It's a kind of slow dance, a patient exploration of how they might fit together when the time is right. You can feel the calmness of this process. The solution is still supersaturated. That's a word that just means it's full to bursting with the potential for order, but not yet ready to commit everywhere. And so these tiny, ephemeral clusters, called embryos in the language of science, but here we can just call them hints of what's to come, blink in and out of existence, a gentle pulse of almost being. The space around you remains quiet. The warmth remains constant. You drift among these fleeting gatherings, noticing how some dissolve back into the random motion, while others, by sheer patience, grow just a little larger, adding one ion, then another, as if they're taking a slow, careful breath. There's no hurry. There's no race. Every particle has all the time in the world. And you, floating there, have all the time in the world, too. Nothing demands your attention. You can let your mind rest on the image of these tiny groups forming and unforming, a lullaby of molecular possibility. It's like watching the softest snowfall, where each flake melts upon landing. But the ground is slowly, inevitably being prepared for something lasting. The solution hums with a low, steady energy, a hum that isn't a sound but a feeling, a gentle vibration that speaks of infinite patience. In this long, long moment, you are suspended in the pause before birth, the quiet gathering of intent, and it's peaceful here, so peaceful, and now, slowly, we drift toward the moment when one of these tiny clusters becomes stable, when the gentle testing finds a pattern that holds. You feel a subtle shift, not in temperature or light, but in the quality of the stillness. It's as if a soft, silent bell has been struck, and the solution around the cluster begins to hum with a new kind of order. The cluster, you can call it a nucleus now. A seed has reached a size where the inward pull of its arrangement overcomes the gentle random wanderings that might break it apart. Ions that drift near it now feel a stronger attraction. They slide into place on its edges with a smooth, almost inevitable motion, like a key slipping into a lock that was always waiting for it. You observe this from a closed, floating perspective, right there in the solution. And you notice how the process is still so unhurried. One ion arrives, settling onto a corner of the tiny seed. It releases a tiny amount of heat, so small it's barely a whisper of warmth, and then it becomes still. Locked into the pattern, another ion follows, finding a spot right next to the first. They don't rush, they simply drift in, align themselves, and become part of the growing order. The seed is now a crystal, the tiniest possible crystal, and it has faces. Smooth, flat planes on a microscopic scale, defined by the repeating arrangement of its inner parts. You can see these faces developing, each new arrival adding to the neat, geometric edges. It's like watching a master builder place stones, but the builder is a soft, pervasive force, and the stones are atoms drifting in a calm sea. The crystal grows layer by layer, and you drift around it, circling slowly, observing the way each new ion takes its place. There's a rhythm to it, a gentle, repetitive rhythm. It's the rhythm of a heartbeat that beats once every few seconds, or every few minutes, depending on how you measure time here. But you're not measuring time. You're just watching, floating, feeling the steady, soothing pulse of matter organizing itself. The crystal surface isn't perfectly still. On these tiny faces, you can sense the ongoing dance. Ions that have just attached might detach again if they haven't found the most secure spot, but they never go far. They hover, they reattach, they settle. It's a continual, gentle adjustment, like a sleeper shifting to find a comfortable position, and all the while, the crystal grows, so slowly, adding width and depth, its edges becoming sharper, its faces more distinct. The space around the crystal feels sacred. Quiet, a small sanctuary of order in the liquid's randomness. The solution is still full of unattached ions, drifting lazily by, and they now have a destination if they choose to wander close. But there's no obligation. Some pass by again and again, their paths curving in the fluid's gentle flow, and eventually, when the time is right, one will veer close enough to feel the pull and settle into the growing lattice. You're witnessing the very birth of a solid, a passage from chaos to calm. And it's happening with the softest of touches, gently. You find yourself moving into a new perspective, floating just above one of the crystal's flat faces. It stretches before you like a vast, quiet plain, a geometric landscape of astonishing smoothness. From this close, the face isn't a featureless plain, but a series of terraces, like the steps of an ancient, shallow staircase that descends into the distance. These are layers of the crystal. Atom, thick sheets that have grown outward. You drift lower, and you see the edge of one of these layers, a tiny ledge where the flat surface drops down a single atomic step. This is where the growth is happening now. Right along this meandering step edge. The step isn't a straight line. It wanders in gentle curves and angular turns. A path dictated by the crystal's inner symmetry. Along this edge, new ions arrive. They don't leap or surge, they drift down from the solution, settle onto the flat terrace above the step, and then they wander, so slowly, across the smooth plain. They're like tiny, aimless travelers on a featureless plain, gliding with a frictionless ease. They move until they reach the step edge, and there they find a perfect niche, a corner where they can nestle in and become part of the crystal. This niche is called a kink site, a place where an ion can bond to 2 or 3 of the crystal's existing atoms at once. And it's an especially welcoming spot. The ion simply settles in, giving off that tiny, whispery warmth, and the step edge advances just a fraction. Another ion lands on the terrace, wanders, finds a kink, settles. The process repeats endlessly, a quiet, patient march. You watch one particular step, and you notice how its advance is not uniform. It flows in fits and starts, depending on where the kink sites are. But overall, it moves forward with a steady, tranquil rhythm. It's a rhythm that could lull you deeper into calm. You might imagine the faintest whisper of a sound, the soft click of each ion locking into place. But it's not a sound. Really, it's more a sensation of rightness, a gentle, satisfying feeling of pieces coming together. The crystal face grows wider, one row at a time, the terraces spreading outward like the slowest wave you can imagine. Above the step, the solution remains calm and full, a reservoir of untapped order. You drift along the step edge, following its winding path, and you see how the kink sites are always waiting, always ready. It's a comforting thought that in this quiet place, there is always a spot perfectly shaped for whatever comes, a place of belonging. Nothing is forced, nothing is rushed. The crystal just accepts patiently what the solution offers, and it grows, and you, floating there, can feel the peace of that acceptance. Time moves differently here. The step advances imperceptibly, and yet you sense the change, the slow, reliable progression. It's like watching a shadow move across a floor on a long, quiet afternoon, a sign of the turning world that never hurries but never stops. You can let your thoughts settle on this image, the quiet advancement of a single line of atoms, and feel yourself drifting deeper into rest. And now, slowly, we drift closer still, so close that you can follow the path of a single ion as it makes its journey through the solution and into the crystal's embrace. Imagine you become that ion, a tiny sphere of charge, suspended in the warm, thick liquid. You have no will, no direction, but you feel the gentle buffeting of water molecules around you. They push and pull with soft, random nudges, a ceaseless, gentle dance that keeps you moving, but so very slowly. You are adrift, and it's a pleasant, aimless drifting. Around you, other ions are doing the same, a whole community of wanderers in the quiet solution. The light, if there is light, filters through the liquid in muted, bluish tones, a calm and endless underwater glow. You feel no weight, only a diffuse, steady pressure of the medium, a constant, soothing embrace. Your motion is a slow, three-dimensional stroll, one that occasionally brings you near the crystal. You can sense its presence from afar, a region of order that exerts a faint, attractive influence. It's not a pull you have to obey, it's more like a gentle invitation. Each time your random path carries you a little closer, the invitation becomes a bit more noticeable. It feels like a soft guidance, like a hand held out in the most insistent way. You drift near, then away, then near again. A lazy, wandering approach. And then, on one of those approaches, you happen to glide onto the smooth terrace of the crystal face. The moment you touch down, everything changes, but so softly. The random buffeting of the solution lessens, replaced by a smoother, more directed influence. You're now moving across the terrace, a flat expanse of atoms arranged in perfect rows beneath you. You can feel their subtle pattern, like a gentle, rhythmic texture. You drift across this plane, not bound but guided, pulled gently in one direction, then another, as the crystal's forces shape your path. You're looking for something, though you're not conscious of it. Your very nature is to seek a place of lowest energy, the most comfortable resting spot. And that spot is the kink at the step edge. So you wander, so slowly, across the terrace. It's a serene journey. The terrace is wide, and your motion is languid. You might pause, resting against a raised atom, then slip away, continuing your quiet search. There's no anxiety in it, just a gentle, patient quest. You're a part of a slow, beautiful process, and every moment of it is filled with a calm inevitability. Eventually, you reach the step edge. You feel the drop, the boundary between this layer and the next. And there, in the corner where the step turns, you find a kink site, a perfectly shaped hollow formed by 3 of the crystal's atoms a seat that seems made just for you. You slide into it with an ease that is deeply satisfying, a feeling of clicking into place, of arriving home. As you settle, you release that tiny bit of extra energy, a faint warmth that dissipates instantly into the surrounding solution, and you become part of the crystal. You are now a member of the orderly array, locked into the lattice, bonded to your neighbors in a quiet, permanent embrace. But you're not truly still, even in the solid. You have a gentle vibration, a soft, internal hum that all atoms possess, a lullaby of position and energy. It's the most peaceful state imaginable, resting in a place that was waiting for you, surrounded by others just like you, all humming the same quiet note. And from this inside view, you can feel the crystal's wholeness, its steady, enduring presence. And you know that the journey is complete for this one ion, even as the growth continues forever around you. Slowly, we drift outward again, pulling back from the atomic intimacy to a view that reveals a larger pattern on the crystal's face. From here, you see that the growth isn't always just the simple advance of straight steps. Sometimes, the crystal's own structure creates a spiral, a gentle, never-ending ramp that winds outward from a central point. This happens because of a tiny imperfection, a slight shift in the layers, called a screw dislocation, a name that sounds harsh, but in reality, it's just a quiet twist, a gentle, enduring offset in the crystal's stacking. And from this twist, a spiral growth pattern emerges. You can see it now, a delicate, winding staircase that starts at a single point and curls outward, round and round, a graceful, logarithmic spiral. The steps are atom, thick ledges, just like before. But now they're not isolated. They're connected in one continuous, ascending path. Ions arrive from the solution and land on these spiral steps, settling into kink sites that are always being renewed, because the spiral never runs out of edge. It's a perpetually advancing pattern. You drift above this spiral, and it's deeply soothing to trace its curve with your gaze. Round and round it goes, and as it turns, it slowly, steadily widens, covering the crystal face with new layers. The spiral never completes, it just keeps winding, endlessly. This is a growth mechanism that can go on as long as the solution supplies ions. A calm, eternal self, perpetuation. You can imagine floating along that spiral, rising so imperceptibly with each turn, moving outward in a gentle, constant ascent. There's a profound rhythm here, the rhythm of the circular and the continuous. It's like the breathing of the crystal, a slow, steady inhale and exhale that builds the solid form layer by layer. No need for a new layer to start. The spiral provides its own step, always ready. As you watch, you notice the subtle variations in the spiral's shape. It might be tightly wound near the center, then stretch out further as it grows, following the crystal's natural symmetry. The edges of the spiral are sharp and clean, catching the faint light in a way that makes them gleam softly, a ghostly shimmer of order. And all the while, the ions drift in, find their place, and the spiral turns. It's a clockwork of such profound slowness that it's outside of time. You could watch for what feels like 1,000 years, and the spiral would still be turning. Still the same, still different. The pattern is so reliable, so predictable in its gentle, winding way, that your mind can rest on it completely. There are no surprises here, no sudden changes, only the quiet, patient turn of the spiral, a lullaby of geometry. And you notice, perhaps, that the spiral is not alone on this crystal face. There may be other spirals, originating from other dislocations, each one turning independently, their steps sometimes meeting and merging in a peaceful coexistence. They create a subtle, wavy pattern on the surface, a topography of calm growth, and you float among them, feeling the deep peace of a process that has no end, that just is, steady and serene. Now, gently, we drift toward the heart of the crystal, right into the interior of the lattice, where the repeating order stretches away in all directions. You find yourself inside the solid, and it's not a dark, cramped place, but a vast, open framework of astonishing regularity. The atoms, or ions, are arrayed around you in perfectly straight rows and columns, extending into the distance until they fade into a soft, geometric blur. You are suspended within this three-dimensional grid, and it feels like being inside a silent cathedral built of light and symmetry. The units repeat, a pattern that goes on forever. The same pattern, over and over, with never a mistake. To the left, a row of ions, each spaced exactly the same distance apart. To the right, an identical row, above and below, layers of them stack in perfect alignment. You can turn in place, and the view is always the same, a peaceful, unchanging array. This is the unit cell, the fundamental block of the crystal, and it repeats in every direction, like a gentle, whispered word that is spoken without end. There is a profound comfort in this repetition. Nothing unexpected happens. Every place you look, you see what you saw before, and yet it never becomes monotonous, because the mind can just let go and drift within the pattern. The ions themselves aren't static, they vibrate softly, a gentle shimmer of position. It's a collective hum, a slow, coordinated dance that keeps the crystal alive in its own quiet way. You can feel that vibration as a subtle, soothing warmth, a resonance that passes through you. This interior is bathed in a dim, even light, a light that seems to emanate from the ions themselves, a pale, silvery glow that makes the geometric planes visible. You can see the bonds between ions as soft, luminescent threads, connecting each to its neighbors in a network of calm intimacy. There is a sense of utter safety here, of being held in a structure that is absolute and stable, yet gentle. The crystal has no sharpness inside, no edges to cut, only the soft, regular arrangement of matter in its most peaceful state. If you drift forward through the lattice, you pass row after row, and each row is exactly like the one before. There's a sense of moving without going anywhere, because the destination is identical to the departure. It's a journey that is simultaneously still, and that is deeply restful. You can imagine time not as a line, but as a pervasive, steady pulse marked by the gentle vibration of the atoms. Each cycle is the same, each moment a repetition of the last, a continuous, tranquil present. The crystal doesn't remember the past. It just is now, always, and in this now, you can rest. You can let the endless repetition carry you, like floating on a calm, invisible sea where the waves are the rows of atoms, rising and falling with a rhythm so slow it's just a feeling. The symmetry is so complete that it's as if the crystal is singing a single, sustained note, a chord of perfect order, and you are inside that note, held in its vibration, peaceful and still. And now, slowly, we drift to a place where the perfect order holds a quiet visitor. A small imperfection that brings a gentle color. As you float through the lattice, you begin to sense a subtle change in the pattern ahead. One of the ions in a row is different. It's slightly larger, or its charge is not quite the same, and it sits there within the ordered array. A calm outsider. This is an impurity, a foreign atom that drifted in during the crystal's growth and found a place in the lattice. It's not a flaw that disturbs the peace. Rather, it's a soft, unique presence that warps the surrounding order just a little. The nearby ions have shifted slightly, adjusting their positions to accommodate this visitor. The shift is gentle, a mild, local relaxation of the strict geometry, and it creates a region of subtle strain, a quiet halo of distortion, and this distortion interacts with light in a way that gives the crystal a hue. When light passes through, the impurity absorbs some of the colors and lets others pass, tinting the crystal with a pale, delicate shade. You might see a soft violet, like the palest amethyst, or a tender rose pink, or a warm, smoky brown. The color is not intense, it's a whisper of tint, a breath of color that fills the surrounding space with a calm, chromatic glow. You drift closer to this foreign ion, and you feel the gentle difference it makes. It's like a single, muted note in a chord, adding a quiet richness. The light around you takes on that color, a soft wash of lavender or peach, and it's deeply soothing to the eyes of your mind. You can imagine the sunlight, or any gentle light, filtering through the crystal and emerging tinted, carrying the peace of this small imperfection. The presence of this impurity is entirely benign. It doesn't weaken the crystal, it just makes it unique, a record of the solution from which it grew, and the slow arrival of such impurities is part of the crystal's story. They drift in, just like any other ion, and when they find a spot, they settle, bringing their own quiet character. You can feel the patience of this process. The impurity doesn't rush, it waits, and the lattice adjusts, and the color blooms so slowly it takes ages to become visible. And now, as you float in this colored light, you might feel a sense of deep tranquility, as if the color itself is a balm. The violet is the color of dusk, the pink of dawn, both times of quiet transition. The crystal holds these moments within it, permanently, in a state of calm suspension. You can linger here, surrounded by this soft, internal glow, and let the hue wash over you. The lattice continues to repeat, and the impurity remains, a steadfast point of gentle difference. And you realize that perfection and imperfection coexist so peacefully here, that the crystal is all the more beautiful for its quiet visitors. It's a comforting thought that in the vast order, there is room for a little softness, a little color, a little unplanned grace. And now, we drift away from the single crystal, out of the solution entirely, and into a hollow space within the rock of the earth, where a different kind of crystal growth has been unfolding in the most patient silence. You find yourself inside a geode, a rounded cavity in ancient stone, and it's dark here, but not frighteningly so. The darkness is soft, velvety, a blanket that wraps around you. Overhead and all around, the curved walls of the cavity are lined with crystals, countless crystals, each one pointing inward like a tiny, faceted spire. They grew here over eons, fed by mineral, rich water that seeped through the rock. Drip by drip, a slow, steady nourishment. You float in the center of this geode, surrounded by a forest of crystal points. The air is still and cool, with a faint, clean scent of damp stone and ancient time. Above you, a cluster of crystals catches a glint of light from somewhere. Perhaps a faint luminescence from the minerals themselves, or a distant, filtered glow from the outside world, and they shimmer softly. A gentle sparkle that doesn't dazzle, but simply glows. The crystals are of quartz, maybe, or amethyst, their tips sharp, but their presence utterly calm. Each one began as a tiny seed on the cavity wall, and over thousands of years, they grew inward, their points extending slowly into the hollow. You can see the layers of growth on their faces, subtle striations that mark the passing of eons like the rings of a tree, but much, much slower. The water that fed them is mostly gone now, leaving the crystals dry and complete, but you can still sense the memory of that slow, liquid delivery, the way each arriving molecule added to the tips, elongating them by a whisper each century. The feeling here is one of profound, ancient stillness. This geode has been here, quiet, unchanged, while the world above shifted and turned. It's a sanctuary of deep time, a place where nothing ever hurries. You drift among the crystal points, and they seem to welcome you without a sound. Their facets reflecting your presence as a soft, diffuse gleam. Some crystals are larger, having found a richer spot where the fluid flowed more freely. Others are small, just beginning their long journey before the waters receded. But all are at peace, their growth now paused but not truly ended, just waiting in a sleep of their own. The arrangement is not perfectly orderly. They cluster in groups, crossing each other at gentle angles, creating a quiet, three-dimensional lace of mineral. It's beautiful in a way that doesn't demand attention, a beauty that you can just feel, like a calm presence beside you. You might imagine the slow dripping that once echoed here, each drop a small delivery of dissolved silica, a patient offering. The sound of the drip, drip, drip was a lullaby that lasted millennia, and now it's gone, leaving only the perfect silence and the crystals that were born from it. In this hollow, you are suspended in a timeless moment, cradled by the ancient rock, surrounded by the quiet testimony of the earth's slow, creative breath, and it's deeply, profoundly restful. Gently, you find yourself moving deeper still, into the very heart of the earth, where the heat is greater but still a soft, ambient warmth, and where crystals form not from water but from the slow cooling of molten stone. This is a place of primordial calm, a region where magma, a thick, glowing, viscous liquid, rests in immense chambers far below the surface. You float within this magma, and though it's warm, it's a gentle, encompassing warmth, like the heat of a soft, heavy blanket. The molten rock is dense and slow, moving, its currents so languid they're barely perceptible. In this deep, deep place, the cooling is almost imperceptible, a fraction of a degree every 1,000 years, and as the heat slowly, so slowly, bleeds away into the surrounding crust, the atoms in the magma begin to lose their wild, random motion. They start to feel the pull of order. Tiny crystals begin to nucleate, just like in the solution. But here they form from the molten silicate. You see them appearing as minute, glowing points in the orange, red dimness. The first solid grains in a sea of liquid rock. They grow, as the temperature drops ever so slightly, into larger crystals, olivine, pyroxene, feldspar. They interlock, building a framework of solid within the fluid, a quiet, creeping crystallization that lasts for millions of years. You can watch this process with the patience of the deep earth. The crystals don't rush. They take on shapes dictated by their inner nature. some forming long, slender prisms, others blocky, equant forms. They push aside the remaining melt gently, or include it as tiny, fluid, filled inclusions that will later become microscopic time capsules. There is no violence here. Despite the word magma, this is a cooling, a slow settling, a gradual ordering of matter from a chaotic, hot state to a calm, solid one. The heat is a comforting presence, not a threat. It's the warmth of the Earth's deep heart, a steady, eternal glow. As you drift among these growing crystals, you see how they crowd together, forming a coarse, grained rock, a granite or a gabbro. Each crystal has its own space, its own quiet growth. You can sense the sheer scale of time. Individual crystals take tens of thousands of years to grow to the size of a grain of rice. The slowest pulse you can imagine, and yet it pulses. The surrounding melt is depleted of the elements that went into the crystals, and the composition changes, giving rise to different minerals in a soft, sequential choreography. First one mineral crystallizes, then another, in a patient, predictable succession. The entire chamber is a slow, silent orchestra of solidification, and you, floating in the midst of it, feel the deep reassurance of this geologic rhythm. It's a rhythm that forms the very continents, the bedrock beneath mountains, and it does so with a tranquility that belies the immense forces. Those forces are balanced, held in check, moving at a pace that is almost stillness. You can let your mind rest on the image of these glowing, growing crystals, suspended in the warm, dense melt, and feel the deep, grounding peace of the Earth's own slow breath. It's a breath that takes an age to inhale and an age to exhale. And in that breath, you are held. And now, slowly, we drift back, leaving the deep magma chamber, rising through the rock, through the quiet geode, through the still solution, to the place where we began. The crystal that was born in that saturated quiet is now fully formed. Its faces smooth and bright, its interior a perfect repeating lattice, its color a soft, gentle hue from some quiet impurity. It floats there, suspended in the solution, complete. You can see it from the outside now, a faceted gem of calm, its edges catching the dim, bluish light. It's the same crystal you've journeyed through, the same quiet birth you witnessed from the first tentative clustering to the endless spiral growth. And now, the journey feels complete, but not sharply ended. It's more like a gentle settling, a soft return to awareness, but still in a space of peace. The solution around the crystal is still full, still calm. The warmth is still the same. Time still moves differently here. The crystal will continue to grow, ever so slowly. If the solution remains saturated, it might add a few more layers, widen its faces just a little. But that growth is not something you need to witness. It happens. It has always been happening, and it will go on. The image of the crystal, in its perfect quiet, remains with you. You can feel its presence, a steadfast, ordered stillness. And you can carry that feeling with you as you drift into sleep. There's no hurry. There's never been any hurry. The journey through the slow birth of a crystal has no true end. It circles back on itself, like the spiral on the crystal face, always providing a new step, always ready to begin again. The gathering of dust in a molecular cloud, the quiet settling of an ion into a kink, the slow cooling of the earth, all these are part of the same patient rhythm, the rhythm of the universe building order from calm, And you are part of that rhythm, always. So you can rest now, knowing that the crystal grows on, silent and serene. The journey continues, always, in the still, deep places, and you can return to it anytime you close your eyes. But for now, for this night, the quiet formation is complete, and you are held in that same peace. Good night.